The last couple of days have been really exciting. I mean, probably all of you were on Twitter and you saw that, tweets are being, written about this event. People are packing their bags and getting ready to come here today. So this is really, really a great time and always an exciting atmosphere. So finally, this day has come, right? A day we've all been waiting for quite some time. Now, before we get started, there's a couple of people I want to thank today, and I want to start with all of you. Really, thanks for coming. We have far more than 400 people today in the audience, which is really, really great. Thanks for taking, time off work, traveling to come here. This is really appreciated. So thanks to everyone who took time to spend it with us today. There's another group of people who deserves a big round of applause, I think. It's all of the great speakers today who created a lot of content over the past couple of weeks and months and really spent a lot of time on their weekends and their free time to put together stuff that you will hear today and to create knowledge for all of you. So this is really something I think, let's give them a big round of applause to all of the speakers of this year's conference. There are some more people, obviously, we need to thank. There's the sponsors who make sure that we have this beautiful venue and food and drinks and everything today. So thanks to them. But there's especially a group of people who, again, deserves, I think, a big round of applause. It's all of the great women and men who worked tirelessly for the past months, behind the scenes, really, to make sure that everything runs as smoothly as it does today. So to the crew and to the team that worked on the organization of UI5con, you did an awesome job. Thanks very much for this. Thank you. So last year, right? Last year was amazing, really. To everyone who was here last year, I think I don't have to explain the atmosphere that we all felt during the conference, but also afterwards. So I think it's fair to say that we all had grins on our faces for days after the conference, and we really felt like, okay, we have to do this again, right? So we were really happy by the time we had, secured all the funding and stuff, and we're sure that we could do it again. But we were completely blown away when time for registration was there, right? And every ticket was completely gone within 8 hours or so, with 200 people on the waiting list. So really the feedback and the appreciation from the community and everyone is heartfelt. It's really, really great to see that, and I think it makes us humble and proud to be part of this story altogether. So thanks very much for this appreciation. So with last year's great event, I thought a little bit about why is it that we are here today, all of us, and I think it's because there's something that all of us have in common. Each and every one of you in the audience shares a passion for technology, for open source and for this community spirit, but especially for UI5, right? So I believe this is your conference, right? This is your day. This is where you get to exchange ideas, you learn, you connect, you make friends, and you grow, UI5 and everything that belongs to it. So I think the contribution that everyone makes today at this conference is really big. It's the speakers that, as I said, create know-how, they create knowledge, and they spread it with all of you, which is great to advance this topic. But it's also every single participant today just sitting in the audience listening in, because you will return to your companies, to your places of work, and you will talk about this. You will see today something that you will tell other people, and thus you will be the multiplication factors for the content and everything you saw today. So this is really important. So I think today is a day to share, to connect, to learn and enjoy all of our presence today. So last year, as I said, was really great. We had amazing speakers and content, and so we thought about how can we make this even better this year, right? So one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to bring in more people, make sure we have great speakers, as many speakers as we can fit into the agenda. There were a couple of things last year that a lot of people loved in the audience, and that we also thought about how can we improve this. And one of the things we had on the agenda last year was that we had some professionals that made some custom-built, open-sourced craft beer for us, right? So last year we had served the now infamous Pull to Refresh IPA, and so this year we thought, how can we make this better, right? So some professionals made this custom built for us, and the only way we can think of improving this is that some amateurs do it, right? So a group of totally unskilled UI5 professionals tried their best to create the brew for today, right? So we met 6 weeks ago on a beautiful day, and we, had some professional assistance. Don't worry about this. So it was under professional supervision. But we sat together and enjoyed the sunny day, the waiting times during the brewing process, to finally come up with a huge keg of beautiful New England-style beer that today I'm really happy to present to you. It's our own first fully owned creation. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the Yippee API-PA. So this has a built-in security factor that by the time you're not able to say that name anymore, you should stop drinking it, right? Okay, so this beer obviously will be served today at 6:30, right after all of the sessions. And we invite you all to join us. It'll be right outside. And for some more organizational topics, for all of the SAP employees in the room, we encourage some of you to also use the canteens in the other buildings so that we can ensure that during lunchtime it won't be too crowded. But tonight, after we serve the beer, there's also going to be an evening event. So all of you, please feel free to join us there. There's going to be food and drinks and music, some dancing hopefully. So all of you, please join us, celebrate this day with us. And with this, there's not much more to say, but learn, mingle, right? And have fun today. And so we officially open this year's Open UI5con. Thank you very much. So next up, Stefan Beck, CPO of UI5, will take the stage to talk to you about the news of UI5.
Thanks, Frederic, for the introduction. Welcome, UI5con. Welcome, friends of UI5. As Frederic said, I'm really happy to be here with you again. I'm really happy that you are here and want to share and learn today with us all the information that we are going to present. We start, let's say, looking back, or we start with the topics that we announced 1 year ago in the UI5con, and we'll present the achievements that we made since then. Can you quickly give me a hand? Who was in the last UI5con 2017? Oh, looks yeah, quite amazing. So thanks for coming again, and obviously also welcome to all the ones who are now at the first UI5con at SAP. So I will present the content, and what I will present is slightly different than in the past. So we have mainly presented new features and functions in the past that we introduced, and this year, as announced last year, we had a focus in renovation of UI5, in innovating the core into improving UI5, and have less new features, what will also be reflected in the presentation time. I think we will spend 1/3 of the presentation time with the new features and functions, and 2/3 of the keynote presentation will be around our innovation called UI5 Evolution. Still, there's a considerable amount of new topics, and I start now with what we have done around the demo kit. For the people being here last year, we have, let's say, showed you a brand new demo kit, and we were really proud of the demo kit. And however, it did not completely live up or stick to the expectations that you had. And thanks a lot. You gave us really good feedback, brilliant feedback. And I'm now really happy to say that we have taken up your feedback and we have improved the demo kit tremendously. So I hope you all experience this now in your daily life. We have significantly improved the performance of the demo kit. We now also will introduce the ability that you can select the UI5 version. You know, the demo kit is hosted on the SAP Cloud Platform, but in your on-premise world, you might have different UI5 versions. They do not fit. And now we enable you to select the UI5 version that exactly fits to your needs. Also, we are asked, okay, I would like to have the documentation ideally as PDF. This was also introduced. We brought an overview page about the tooling that is around UI5, and also we added additional links to our UX guidelines and documentation. And I directly start to show it to you. And this is now the demo kit as of today, and you also could perceive the startup performance was quite good. And here on the upper right-hand side, you find now the ability to choose your version. Now you can directly use exactly the version that you want to have. What is also new here, we have the tools section, as I mentioned here. You can now find information around the SAP Web IDE, also very important around the UI5 Inspector and Icon Explorer, Build Tooling, Theme Designer, and the Theme Parameter Toolbox. So also make use of this one. You get related information to our tools. And now let's look into some other improvements that we have made. If we go here to the documentation, as said, from a structural perspective, there's not too much of a difference. And here you can go into the sample section. And now let's start with the API reference. I go into the flexible column layout as a first starting point. And what you now can see here, you have some additional information. You can jump to the documentation, and also you can jump to the UX guidelines. Here, you then can directly see that the recommendation from our design folks, how to use this control, when to use this control, also quite nicely and very comfortable. And the same is obviously true for the documentation. And so this was some, let's say, improvements that you have asked for. Now let's go into Overflow. Toolbar, there's an additional thing that was given by the feedback from you. You would like to know what are, let's say, the subclasses, where are our controls used, and you can now find this information here directly in this section. Then another information that you asked for, SAP UI base, I think is a good sample for this one. I can select now the SAP UI5 base, and now you can find the library which contains a respective control, and also you can see the visibility that we have. Good. The next thing is, let me quickly go back to the first one. Good. And sorry, my fault, sorry, forgive me. But if you look carefully, you could have seen it already, this feature that I'm going to present. Now, if you have opened the API reference, you can now go to the methods section and now select the method. Now, watch please carefully the URL. And now you see that URL was changed, and now we have deep links available. If you navigate inside the demo kit, you can share a link, send it to a colleague, and let's say therefore have additional comfort when working with the demo kit. So here, as said, we have definitely improved it, and if you are not yet happy, again, there will be a next UI5con. Use the feedback button, and we will ensure that we incorporate your feedback and get it then in an even better state. But I really expect that we made a huge step forward already. Now let's come to the next topic, the supportability tools. We started also to announce that last year, especially the support assistant in the very first place. The support assistant is a tool that helps you to analyze and improve your UI5 application that you have built. We stated that you can open it easily with Control-Alt-Shift-P. Then you find a button, Support Assistant, then you can launch it, and it has a kind of rule set that helps you to build a best practices application. And the rules are defined by our team, but also the rule set obviously can be extended. So here we have done also, let's say, massive performance improvement, enhancements, and improve the usability. We now use the hierarchical tree table, that it looks much better. You can see it below. We have also now color coding regarding the severity of the error messages. Have you a very high ticket or high priority high problem, a medium or low? You can also see this now with the color coding and the performance and the accessibility rules were improved. Therefore, if you would like to write best practice UI5 application before finishing your development, or even better in between, open the support assistant, have a look in our rule, and follow the guidelines and the hint that we can give you. Now, the second tool, also known for quite some time, the Diagnostics tool, is something that we had for quite some time. However, as we added functionality, as we came up with Fiori, as we have the FLP integration, as we have Fiori elements becoming more popular, we have to enhance the Diagnostics tool, and therefore we added the specific sections to deal with the FLP settings that also influence UI5 applications. We improved the tooling around UI flexibility, and we have a special, let's say, tooling support for Fiori elements. So also here, please give it a try. Remember that the tools exist, and when working with UI5, use them. UI5 Inspector I already mentioned in the demo kit presentation, or the demo. This is also very nice tool, and also thanks to all people contributing. So we have a quite nice and active community around it. And also here we will soon release the UI5 Inspector that comes then with theming support that makes theming in the future easier, so that you can easier find where to touch your application and your CSS to come up with custom themes. Good. Now coming to the improvements around the controls. You know, UI5 has traditionally and from the very beginning a huge set of controls. We serve many applications with many different needs, and so this was somehow a focus investment area over the past years. However, we are not really lucky of having so many controls, so also later in the session you will hear what we do about this, and therefore we now reduce slightly the investment, do only the really needful, the important improvements, and add, let's say, only the controls that are really, really required, and we do not see any alternative. You also know UI5 grows and grows from a size perspective. That means every control that we add, every feature that we add also contributes to the size. However, also later on, we will touch and explain what we do about this, that is no longer a problem. So let's look into the planning calendar. You will see a demo also with the planning calendar soon. So the planning calendar was a very important control, used by many applications. So here we have introduced the calendar week display support. We have improved the navigation capabilities to dates. We allowed, let's say, one-click create actions for appointments and things like this. We have come up with a new control still, the color palette control. You can see it here. And besides that, still a lot of enhancements to the Fiori 2 controls, and also the object header. Object page header, let's say, was now aligned with the Fiori 2.0 design guidelines. On the right-hand side, you see the info label control. It's also a quite new one, but you know, it makes a lot of sense in many applications. And also very important is the improvement that you can see below with the rich text edit control. This is now aligned with Fiori. You can see that it has Fiori and UI5 based toolbars. That means you can theme it now and really embed it nicely into Fiori application. It looked like a foreign piece in the past, and now with the investments that we have done, it really looks like and embeds nicely into Fiori apps. And obviously there are many, many more improvements in the controls, and as usual we all collect them all in the What's New section in the demo kit. So please have a look into the What's New section there, and you can find out all other improvements that we made available. One important topic in general, not only for the planning calendar, what I will show in the demo, is that we now introduced a drag and drop concept in the UI framework that we now make available for the UI5 controls, so that it's really easy to use drag and drop. And as said, I quickly open the planning calendar, and now in the planning calendar, you can see the appointments, and as you expect, you can nicely move them around. I can pick it and then also make the appointment a bit longer, and I can say, okay, maybe as a manager, this is a task that someone else should do, and I then pull it down to the next line. And so we have, let's say, as you expect, obviously, here this nice drag and drop capabilities in place. For all the details, obviously how to use it and when to use it and more information, there's a session at 5 p.m. in the room B, and Shahid will provide you with all the details that you need. Good, now coming to a topic that we touched already in the last UI5con and also beforehand, UI flexibility services. So as said, we as SAP deliver applications. However, the applications do not really fully meet your expectation. At customer side, you have slightly different processes. There are input fields that you do not need. There are other things that you might miss. And with UI flexibility, we look for a really efficient way, an easy way to bring you in a position to adapt the application to the need of your end users in your company. It has to be easy. We do not want to involve, let's say, long-running IT department processes. So ideally, the key user or even the end user can adjust to a certain extent. I will come to that on the next slide. And therefore, this should be easy to use and stable regarding upgrades of UI5. And as said, intuitive with the goal that you can easily adjust the application to increase the happiness and the efficiency of your end users in your company. So we deal with different personas in this play. So we have the business expert, or what we call the key user, and he does certain changes, but it is important as a key user, I do changes for a certain group of people that I would like to work for, but it's usually nothing that I do for the complete company. And as said, this is the features that were already available. And what we have done and newly added is now that also a key user can create variants. He can create a variant of an application. That means a different tile that appears in your Fiori Launchpad. Or he can also create page variants and variants of view. That means inside one application, you can have different view that you then can switch for the different purposes. Think of a, let's say, create purchase order application. You can have an easy view to enter the fields, and then you can have a more complex view with more additional fields, and depending on the purchase order you want to create, you can easily select one of these page variants to do your job. But in principle, for the second variant, you start the same application, and inside the application, you have the selection of the variant. Now, what you also know from the past, for the end user, they obviously should be able to personalize the application. They have the filter bar where they can variance what their filter values, what they are used to do, and also the table and obviously the management of these variants. And as said, the key difference to the key user as personalization, I'm the end user, I do it for me and only for me. And where we had now the investment and the biggest investment in that area over the last month is that we enable now also the developer to do more. And from a developer's perspective, as you are used to, you are doing the changes, let's say, for the whole company, as if you are a partner for your whole customer, for a specific company, and you can do more. So you can do everything that the key user can do, but you can do more. You can add and change business logic. You can, let's say, even create new applications. And what is also important, you can also decouple the life cycle of your applications from what SAP is delivering, but I'll enter that and show you that quickly in an animated slideshow how to do it. Now think you are the developer persona in a customer. For a customer, you are inside the web IDE, and where you usually create your new application, you now find here the option create adaptation project. Then to create an adaptation project, you now select the application, obviously, that they want to extend. That's the next pop-up. And as a result, finally, in the FLP, we have an own application that is next or can be next to the original one, or also replace the additional one if you adjust the Fiori Launchpad configuration accordingly. Now, we are in the web IDE. We have created such an adaptation project, and now we look at the workspace. What do we see? Inside this application, you see the reference to the original application that we have just chosen in the wizard. And as a difference, it has a different application ID, so logically it is a different application, it is a new application. And also important, you know, there's also then a different set of changes inside this project that only apply for the extended project, and therefore it's completely decoupled, and that means you can now change the application variant without touching the original one. Good. Now, inside the workspace, you can open now the so-called adaptation editor. The adaptation editor is kind of a plugin that we have built for the Web IDE. On the left-hand side, you see a logical outline of the application, of the structure of the controls. In the middle, you have the preview of the application, and on the right-hand side, you find the control properties of the controls that you have selected here in the middle section, the preview section. So you can do now everything that a key user can do, but you can also do more. You can then, after selecting control, also technically influence the controls properties on the right-hand side in modifying them nicely in this tool area on the right-hand side. You can add XML fragments then even, means add release sections to your screen, and also quite nicely then can also even touch and extend the controller code referencing to the original application controller code. So this is a more complex topic, therefore also here from 10 to 2 o'clock, booth 1, we have 2 experts there, Alexander Rau and Christian Vosshage, who will be able to explain you all the detailed questions around UI flexibility. Please have a look, it's quite important from our perspective. Now one topic that is more of a kind of an outlook. We look into the content security policy, and this is something around, let's say, a security requirement that we heard from a lot of customers. So obviously UI5 is already quite good in the sense of click checking protection or cross-site scripting protection. However, content security policy is now an additional line of defense. This is a standard supported by a lot of browser vendors, and let's say all of them will do it. So obviously we want to be compliant to have the best possible security. And why I'm saying it, I explained you a bit why and what we do. It's an outlook, we will do it with an upcoming release, but it's also important for you to know because also applications or control libraries that you have to build might have to adapt. So what is our target? We target in the first shot the UI5 release 1.60, and we would like to fulfill the requirement that we do not allow inline scripting any longer. However, we still allow the eval expression in JavaScript because this is a bit more effort for us, but also we work on that. And in the next release to 160, or maybe the next to the next 1.64, we then also want to get rid of the inline, not only from the inline, but also from the eval statement in JavaScript, and to have the higher level or highest level of protection around CSP compliance. What does it mean technically? As of today, if you look into an HTML application, you have this inline script that I have marked here on the slide, and the goal is to avoid this inline script inside your HTML page. You put it into a specific JavaScript file, and with the policy that you send from the server, you control the domains or the URL, so to speak, where such a JavaScript file can be loaded. So there's no way of pointing you to another place to load a vulnerable or dangerous JavaScript, and therefore put it into a JavaScript file, come up with a domain policy where to load it from. The server controls it easily, the browser considers it, and with that the HTML application changes and just points to the source of the script. So here, let's say as a heads up, 1.60 is Q1, from our perspective, Q1 2019. The beta version will be released around end of the year 2018. However, at a later point in time, you also have to adapt if your customer or you inside a customer have the expectation to be completely CSP compliant. Good. Let's now come to the next section, the very important section, UI5 Evolution. You know, the first question that you might have, what is UI5 Evolution? And it is our most important innovation project that we currently drive. We have started this late in 2016, and we have two, let's say, major goals: solve the existing problems that we have in UI5, and innovate in parallel, consider what are, let's say, up to date or the current best practices of web development, and let's say try to embrace it to the extent possible. Let's quickly start with the problem. One of the dominant problems is that is the startup performance of UI5, because UI5 is huge. It has grown more and more features, and it means more and more JavaScript. And especially on the Android device section, we had problems that, let's say, first you have to load the JavaScript, but obviously the poor existence of JavaScript slows down the execution tremendously. Therefore, we really have to reduce the JavaScript. But on the other hand side, all people, also you, expect new features and improvements. That means, in principle, we add JavaScript. So therefore, what is the solution? The solution is that we decide to only load the JavaScript that we need, that is required for this specific application. And if you look into UI5 as of today, we have the UI5 core and we have control libraries. And both can be really huge. And if you just use one control of a control library, we give you the complete code of the control library. If you use the UI5 core, obviously, UI5 core is always loaded, but also in the UI5 core, there are different OData models. Usually, you use one OData model, so it does not make sense to load both for one application. That is why we said, okay, we have to improve. We have to modularize UI5. It means split the core into pieces. We have to provide the build and development tooling that allows to recognize the dependencies that a specific application needs, and then also come up with the build tooling that you can build packages that then only contain the code that you need. And if you have a huge control library and use only one control, then obviously you expect that the build also just includes only this one control of the library and not the complete library. So therefore, this is somehow the key investment, the modularization of UI5. There's also a nice side effect. If we decouple things, it's also easier to innovate in the future. If, let's say, you have a small piece that you can replace by another piece, you have clear APIs, then it's easier, let's say, to just replace one piece without, let's say, affecting all the rest. And this is, let's say, the key investment, and you will hear that later on by Peter and the colleagues who come on stage. And also important, let's say, in this regard, I talked about this also last year, we have also to, let's say, look into asynchronous APIs. So the synchronous XHR is about to be deprecated. This is one, obviously, right driver and reason, but there are other good reasons with the performance, and I will come to that, and the progressive loading to be completely asynchronous. And not to go into too many details, as the colleagues will do this, I show you now an application, and it's a very specific application. It's the Fiori Launchpad, you all know that. And with the Fiori Launchpad, we have now a first consumer of what we have done with UI5 Evolution around our technical concepts that we have put into place. But you will also realize it's not only the thing of consuming what we have technically done, it's also a kind of a mindset that you need, that you have to change. Colleagues will explain it in more detail. We call it Think Evolution, because you have now to decide and wisely decide when to use, these capabilities of UI5, and therefore the Fiori Launchpad is an excellent example. And in a second you will hear why. Now obviously you see an empty screen, and I will show now an animation that comes up with the complete Fiori Launchpad. And the topic is around progressive loading. And think for a second of two applications. And both applications should have an end-to-end response time of 3 seconds. Now you can see, or you can imagine two scenarios. You enter the URL, click return, then you wait 3 seconds, nothing happens in between, then plop, you see the complete result. End-to-end response time is 3 seconds. But there might be a second variant of the application. You click, again you enter the URL, then after some 500 milliseconds, 400 milliseconds, you see a first paint on the screen. You see something. Then what you see is enriched by call it a meaningful content. You can start to read, you can start to have a look into that one. After 1.5 seconds, potentially the thing that you really were looking for pops up. We call that on the slide also the hero content. Maybe the application at this point in time is really interactive. You can already start to type and click. And still, between 1.5 seconds and up to 3 seconds, the application loads completely all the functions that the other application also used. So you can imagine that there's a huge difference in the perception, although the end-to-end response time is the same. And this is what we now have done with the Fiori Launchpad using, let's say, UI5 Evolution principles, techniques, and ThinkEvo. So what you will see also in the demo, maybe it's even too fast to see it, but let's see, is it happening? That means after 400 milliseconds, this screen turns blue. It does not tell you anything meaningful yet, but it tells you something is happening. It is about to come. And then the next thing is, I was talking about that, is a first meaningful paint. Now we have the speciality that for the Fiori elements, not Fiori elements, for the Fiori Launchpad, sorry, let's say the first meaningful paint is somehow the tiles. You want to have the tiles, and if you see, you can also now see it's not the complete tiles, it's just the subject, means the title and the subtitle of the tile. But at this point in time, you can already click on a tile and work with it. So that means the first meaningful paint, in this case of the Fiori Launchpad, is also the hero element. And what we have done to achieve this, we do all the steps, let's say, then asynchronously. We have then optimized, let's say, Modular Core of UI5, and with the Evo tooling, we have a bundle, a package that now only contains the JavaScript code that you need to achieve this. That means we can execute this as fast as possible and now continue to do more. Because the next step, obviously, the user wants to click. And now with what we have done in Fiori Launchpad, this click is now possible more or less directly with the paint of the tiles. And this is with our measurements was after 1.4 seconds for this sample. And now please watch the tiles. There's something happening to the tiles as soon as the hero element vanished. You can see now we start to enrich the tiles with all the KPI information and the additional information. So this is something that you do not need to click on the tile and to go to your application. But maybe you might need it because you are really interested into such a KPI, then you have to wait. But now it's extremely important that while we do this, we must not block the UI thread. So maybe you just slept or drink your coffee, whatever, and you now want to click while we paint this additional information. So we must not block it. It must still be completely asynchronous. And where I have been talking now too long, you have also seen, I quickly point to it, I think it's sufficient, that also the Fiori Launchpad information here above was rendered then later. So we first enriched the tiles, and then the Fiori Launchpad functionality pops in. And you can also see now there's a kind of a notification area on the right-hand side. That means there are notifications available. And now at this point in time, the user can obviously also click here, and now we load additional code. We load what we need for the notifications, and potentially what we need for the me area on the left-hand side. So that means here you saw a good sample. In the end, this is let's say, we tremendously reduced, let's say, the time when you can start to work with the system and the visual perception. If you now would add all the time that we need to achieve this state, it would be nearly like before, but still, or nevertheless, it's a really, really different perception. And now this would be the visual complete state. Quickly, as last point from my side, I quickly show you the demo, how this now looks like in the labs. This is the Fiori Launchpad Evolution FLP, and you can see it was really quick and nicely. I can still do it once again. Go back to About Blank, FLP Evolution Demo. So you saw it was immediately blue, and then the tiles came up, and that's definitely a tremendous improvement compared to the past. And to learn more of the mechanics, how we achieved this, I introduced Peter Müßig, who is our Chief Architect for UI5, and he will now take over and explain more details about UI Evolution. Peter.
Yeah. Hello and thank you, Stefan. So that happens if your CPO is talking before you. You will always get nervous, and you have seen me maybe jumping around there. So you took more than expected. So, but let's talk a little bit about the insights of our UI5 Evolution project. But first, let's start with a short recap of what happened and what has been explained in 2017. So I've been here directly after the keynote explaining all these concepts. And at the end, Stefan told lots of the things about it. The important part is really that we want to split UI5 into several layers. And therefore, we announced the layered architecture at that point of time, which splits UI5 in the Modular Core, programming model, rendering and controls, and aside, we have this build and development tooling. In the Modular Core section, to recap briefly, it's about synchronous requests, getting rid of them. Stefan said that. It's about that we remodularize our core, coming to more fine-granular modules at the end. And it's also about independence of jQuery and independence of DOM API, at least for the lower levels of the framework. In the build tooling section, we teased these agnostic build modules. So here we want to get independent from any of the build tools in a way that it can work with Grunt, it can work with Gulp, and internally we have the Maven toolchain we still need to support. Together with that, we are working on a command line interface. And this command line interface allows you to have a local development environment which you can really use to easily develop and have fast round trips. And it comes with a build part, and this build part is available for application builds and for library builds, and you can use that to create also self-contained packages. In the rendering and controls layer, we talked about a renovation of our control framework. It's about to make it also agnostic, so the term agnostic comes more and more again in UI5, because with this individual layering of UI5, we want to have individual consumption of that. And for the controls, we want to make it possible that UI5 is not the only way how you consume it, the UI5 programming model. Let's see that later. And programming models, here in that section, we talked how the existing UI5 classic programming model can benefit from that, what we do about in Evolution, and how we can make parts of UI5, like the core and the controls and all that stuff, available for others. Okay, but now let's use the layered architecture as our agenda for today. And the first topic what we have in the agenda is the build and development tooling. With that, I would like to announce that, Merlin, you can come on stage, that we have a new build and development tooling available, which is based on Node.js. It's what you expect. I announced it last year, what we want to have. Now it's there. And this build and development tooling, it supports application and framework developers in the same way. So it should be something for us in the framework. It should be also something for the application developer out there. And it comes with a real good development experience. And this is what I want at the end that Merlin shows to you here on stage.
Right. So this will be a really quick demo of how you can get up to speed with the new UI5 build and development tooling. So on this machine, the new tooling has never been used. So the first thing I'm going to do is install the new UI5 command line interface, which is part of the new tooling. For that, I will use npm, obviously. So installing this globally at UI5/CLI. And this will now install the new UI5 CLI globally. And while it's doing that, you can already see right here I'm having a UI5 project. UI5 Jump in 1, you will see what this is about in a minute. And, but obviously, it's an application, so you can see the web app directory here. And yeah, this application has never been used with the new tooling. So what I'm going to do is do the necessary configuration and start this application with the new tooling. So first I need a new configuration file, UI5.yaml, for the new tooling. And I can actually already use the tooling to generate this file. So it's a UI5 YAML. It automatically detected that this is an application based on the structure of the app, and it took the name from the package.json. And if I use UI5 tree, which shows me what kind of project I'm having here, I can already see that there are no dependencies here yet. So you know this application is based on OpenUI5 and it requires some OpenUI5 libraries. So next I'm adding those dependencies to this project. And I'm actually copying this over. So this project needs the SAP UI5 Core library, SAP M, the SAP Release theme, and the layout library. And I'm also using NPM now to install all those dependencies. So we have all OpenUI5 libraries now available on NPM. And if I take a look at the package.json now, I can see that those dependencies got added to this package.json, the latest version actually. And now I'm ready to go. So I configured this project. I can push this back into our Git repository, and everybody else can now right away use the new tooling with this project. And to demonstrate this, I will start the development server with UI5 serve. And actually, I will add an open parameter, which automatically opens the browser for me with a specific URL. And let's see if it comes up. Yeah. So this is the Flush game. You can actually play it outside all day long. It's right in the foyer. And it's all based on UI5. So you can check it out later.
So thank you, Merlin. And please, can you switch on the mic? So thank you. And have you seen how easy it is to consume the UI5 build tooling? It's just a one-liner to install the tooling on your local machine. And what I want to also bring to you here is two important things. Since March 2018, this UI5 build and development tooling is open source. So we promised last year we will do that open source. It's open source. And hot and geeky, and I see someone who also waited for that, we also have since June in 2018 now our UI5 tooling available on the public NPM registry, so that's why you can consume it that easy now. And in addition to that, I would also announce that we have the open UI5 artifacts, the libraries, also available as NPM modules to be usable with our tooling on the public NPM registry. Yeah, I think that's an applause. Good. There's afterwards direct view session if you want to learn more about the tooling. Yeah, Merlin and Matthias will be there for you, and the booth as well. So let's look into the next layer, and with that, Andreas, maybe you can already come on stage to talk a bit about the Modular Core and give a short demo what happened there.
Thanks, Peter, and hello, everybody. I'll keep it rather short, but bring you an important topic, that's the Modular Core. And so with the Modular Core, we started to create a future-proof foundation for many of the improvements that already got teasered. And it's about a clean module definition, a clear declaration of dependencies. And with that, it allows that the application can come up with just the minimum amount of resources. And what are the guiding principles, the goals behind the Modular Core? That's mostly in line with UI5 Evolution in general. And for one, it's we want to make your apps fast, right? There's nothing wrong with that, I'd say, right? But to get there, what's needed? So we heard it already. We need to make the code base more modular, clean it up, get rid of older stuff, of legacy stuff, and do it in a way that's modern and that allows toolings to consume that code base and massage it, right? And to do so, it's nothing, you use homegrown technologies, you rely on de facto standards out there, like the asynchronous module definition and others. And also you want to reach out and use emerging technologies, stuff that comes up that's on the horizon, like ES6 modules, or other open source tools like Webpack and others. So in order to become future-proof, you need to be more open. And that's what we are doing. We're opening up the framework, make it more easy to incorporate such other projects and technologies, but also stay a true open source project that is, with all our achievements, we also make that available to you. and ask for your collaboration and contribution. Yeah, and as if that wouldn't be enough, right? There's always compatibility. So we don't do that on a green field and from scratch, but we work hard to make it possible in a compatible way. So that allows you to safeguard your investments, but that allows also us to take all of you with us on a journey to also evolve your code base and improve. So let me show you one demo that's kind of an important milestone for the efforts we achieved with UI5 Evolution, and that's with this demo application. You will know for sure the Open UI5 sample app, the to-do list app, and what's good here, it still comes up, right? It's running, and but it does it in a way different maybe than to the past, because now basically all the requests here are done in an asynchronous way. And before there were a lot of synchronous requests, so you probably know that. So you can't really see that easily in the newest Chrome tools, unfortunately. But here, if I open up the console, turn on this logging and filter for synchronous requests, the red lines show there are very few requests that are still being made synchronously. But all the other hundreds of requests in this case are already async. And we'd like to get your code base also into that state.
Okay. So, thank you. Also, a round of applause for Andreas. Maybe again the mic. So, sorry about these spontaneous moves of the microphone. So what you see here is really that the UI5 is really loading completely asynchronous. So it means the loader has been changed to work now asynchronously, which is really a success from our point of view, and it cost us hours to renovate that parts in the UI5 framework to make that possible. Especially the format, how the modules are defined, switching from jQuery sub declare and require to the SAP UI defined syntax, the AMD-like syntax. But let's see the details later. Andreas has an extra session about that. It's 3. You can join that. Let's come to another topic, and it might be a more interesting topic for all of us because some of you have already asked that, and it's about rendering and controls. In rendering and controls, it's about definition of a modern control framework, and what we want to do is we want to reshape that in a way that it can be consumed individually without a dependency to the programming model. Separate data binding from rendering. And what we want to do is to make it possible also to benefit from that what happens in the core to make it usable with a minimalistic core. Let's look into the details a bit more. So the center of the whole story is the lightweight control. I mentioned that last year. The UI5 Classic is our first-class citizen framework using these new lightweight controls. And below we had the string streaming as a rendering technology in the past. If we look into the assets of the lightweight control, we see that's not dramatically changing. There's a render context. It's important for introducing a declarative renderer which provides the properties the declarative template needs to, at the end, render this content inside the DOM. And if you think about that, it's about a change now from an imperative way of writing a control to a declarative way which is markup-centric. And that stays as we announced that last year. With the declarative renderer, we are now able to compile or transpile this into a JavaScript code, which can use lit.html for rendering to come to a really concrete DOM-based update of the screen. Everything is surrounded by this minimalistic core, the so-called rendering core, which just needs the dependencies needed only for the rendering, or includes what is needed for the rendering. And now, as this is not sufficient, we also add a new API on top, the UI5 web components. So with this UI5 web components, Martin, you can come, it's that we have 2 different target audiences for which we provide this. So Classic, UI5 Classic is the typical application developer who builds a complete holistic Fiori application. And for the UI5 web components, we want to make an offering for people who just need the controls as a rendering asset, and the target audience for that is the web developer who knows how to create layouts. And with that, I would like to introduce Martin. He is from the Sofia team who develops these UI5 web components. And please show the playground.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. This is our playground, or we call it EvoGround because it's part of the evolution. On the left side of the screen, you can see a list of our web components-based controls, which are starting from the simple, like button, checkbox, and so on, going through more complex controls, like the date picker and panel. On the right-hand side, you can see how they look. They look exactly as the current standard UI5 Fiori-enabled controls. They are clickable. They have all the interactions that are currently in the framework. But their definition is quite different, as the Web Components API gives us opportunities to define custom tags in our HTML code. We have defined SAP button tag with some properties which are icon and, for example, icon type and so on, which produce buttons on the screen. They also have text property which is inside the custom element. This is done like that because we want to be as much closer as we can to the native HTML API. Let's go to more composite control, for example, the date picker. Its API is quite simple. It has just a value which is presented in an input on the screen. But actually, it opens a popover with calendar in it, and the whole logic and behavior is encapsulated by us in the web component. You can select a date from the date picker. You can even use only the keyboard to select your date, so we are also accessibility enabled. Let's go quickly on the panel. As you can see, it has a lot of properties. But interesting thing here is that the panel has content. It's fully working with interaction. And in its content, it might have another custom elements like labels and so on. But it can have a native HTML, and it is rendered and handled internally by us.
Okay.
So, Peter.
Thank you for the EvoGround. With that, you can just stay on stage, because there is one more layer. It's the programming model. And what wouldn't be not as natural that we also use the web components there? So keep in mind, the programming model of today, the UI5 Classic, is still that what we support. Thousands of apps have been built, thanks to you all here in the round who do that every day or maybe every day. And with that, we will fully stick to support them. We will do enhancements with the framework you need to adapt to, but we keep it at least as compatible as we can. So, but as a side effect of that, we also want to use the latest standard. And one of the emerging standards is the Web Components API. And with that, we say UI5 Classic for sure stays our first-class citizen. But what we want to do as well with the web components is, and now boo, we support also the usage of UI5 via web components inside other programming models. So for us, this is a clear API and a clear separation of that what we provide to any other framework. And we have to know it's some, that we don't guarantee for all of that, but at least the rendering, and that is coming from UI5. And please, can you show the usage in, for example, Angular? Let's use Angular for now.
Okay. So let's take the Angular app. This is a standard Angular app. It's a to-do app. We can define a to-do, select a date, and add the to-do. We have already some to-dos. Okay, we have done the presentation. We have some to-dos for tonight. Anyone join? Yeah. Okay, we can add a to-do, but yeah, of course we need a label for this to-do.
Add one, drink more beer.
Okay, we can add to-do and everything is working fine. So let's jump quickly to the source. As I said, this is a standard Angular app. Let's take a quick look of our component, which searches for the single to-do. It's just a SAP checkbox with some text inside, which is dynamically which is dynamic and takes values from the state of the Angular app and uses the UI5 APIs. Also, we have select events, which are handled in the Angular apps.
Okay, let's get back with the mic to me. So, thank you very much for that. And it looks so natural now. Thank you. Good job. It looks so natural now how to consume these kind of controls inside other programming models. And I would say it's the same also for React. It's the same for Vue. Let's complete the picture of the UI5 layered architecture. And I have one more thing at the end. So one more thing I really would like to share with you. So we learned very much from the nature in the past. And also for the Evolution project, we really learned a lot over the last year. But there is one more thing which I think we have forgotten till now, and we should really mention that, what is important for the evolution. Do someone know what such a feature could be, what the evolution has in the nature and what we don't have in UI5? Anyone? It's a death. I call it a death. But it's not dramatic. It's not about that we say UI5 2.0 or we say, yeah, we kill UI5. No, it's something else. What I want to tell you with that is we need you all here in the room, because there is one thing. We need you to get rid of the old deprecated APIs, switch to the new APIs we achieve. We have async APIs for the old sync variants. Please change that. And we have sessions where we tell that today. We have an option that you have to declare your dependencies now with the AMD-like syntax. Please stop using jQuery subdeclare and require. This is essential for us if we want to do the evolution together. It's about getting and learning asynchronous behavior and using promises. We have promises in the framework. Use them. And think progressive, like you have seen from Stefan, the FLP. Build up the screen not all in one. It doesn't need to be there all in one. It can come up slightly, and only the important things need to be there initially. And last but not least, orchestrate your code execution. You can also push things to the end. And with that, I would finish the presentation of today of the UI5 Evolution. I would really like to say thank you to everyone. And enjoy the UI5con, and I'm happy that you are all here to cheer that day with us.